maybe that actually only exists if, I don't know, I think, I think that would be, or if you put something like well, that's the one. Shit, it's just you know. I was thinking. Oh, no, but you're into like, maybe not that. You're separate. So,
Hey, well, welcome to the Dream Labs live with Dr. Contrast here. I hope it's a good day for you all. I just thought I'd take a moment here and go through some things very quickly, kind of bring you up to speed on where we were with the variant here on the dropship that we were working on yesterday. And I thought I'd go back and look at a little bit of the history. And quite honestly, I think today is going to be a good day for just going through some judgment things and looking at where we are status-wise and how we kind of finesse this whole package. And I think the real difficulty in it has been resolving a lot of areas, in particular, the engine systems, for example, the dihedrals, and then the actual storage boxes themselves for the cartridge system of the delivery ship. And this, by the way, I want to make sure we clarify the fact too that in this variation on the Manticore, it's not the attack version or the interdiction fighter. This is more of a merchant dropship process, which is we're going to be dealing with in this case is just a cargo carrier, no troops, so nothing yet. We're going to go through maybe perhaps go through a series of variations on that as well as we go through the process here. But I think just a matter of review, I keep going back to this elevation here, but there's something about the scale of this thing, the actual format itself, the wing system, maybe not so much the dihedral up and through here, but just bringing it back a little bit with the wing system, I think works well. I think the actual packaging of the storage unit or the cargo systems, the boxes, containers behind the cockpit look good, and we're going to go from there and just kind of rebuild this thing. So let's go through a little history here. That's where I started here some time ago. So that's where we were with that guy, and then we're going to separate this one. Then I went back in, and after we did that little initial study, went back in and did some very little thumbnail sketches on perhaps what those systems might look like in terms of some of the storage of the cargo area for drop-off. It'd be crane related, or else just dropped off landing system, and detach it, then again reassemble it once it's loaded, and off it goes again. So here's a couple of variations, and that's a little bit outside the elevation and showing where that begins to fit into that actual process, or the concept of the wing system is, and where the canopy and the other structures are. So that was the second thing we kind of pulled away with. And once that was all set, I went back in and just looked at what do we look at this thing from the overhead 3/4? And a funny thing, strange thing happened here when I was going through this process, and when I converted it from that first or second series of sketches into this one, it was really odd in terms of looking at this in the overview. There was just something that just didn't look right. I mean, I think the proportion was there and overall length, but there's something really weak in through here. The wings didn't look like it was structured, didn't look like, as if it were bold enough or solid enough. The wing, the dihedrals were okay, but it really looked thin, and it didn't have the same kind of guts. It's a very large machine. This is going to be about anywhere from 20 to 40 meters in length, and it just, I think the length was there, but I think the actual proportion to support that wasn't quite right. Notice the wings dropped a little bit. They're a little bit on the thin side as far as overall width is concerned. Then we came back with this. The containers look pretty good, and then the setup and the gun system or the protection system in the back was okay, but it just didn't really have that same romance or that same guts to it. So I looked at that again. I thought, well, let's do another variation of the theme here. So let's look at this from the point of view from that. Notice what I'm starting to work on now are the wing area, the guts of that area, the actual scale or some substance of that to bring up the speed to this overall scale that we're looking at here. So I went back and did some pencil sketches very quickly on where we are with the setup here. Now it gets a little guttier. Notice the difference in form here. I got a little guttier with some of the wing system, which really began to help it, I think. Took it away from being a little bit thinner, gossamer from a dropship process. I mean, very scale-wise. Not quite sure yet if we want to include the dihedrals in the upper from the original concept sketches we did some weeks ago. There's some merit to that, but I don't know if we really need it. And I think that the real process here is to get some of this to work for us. So that whole front end capsule to really kind of work, and it started to pay off, I think, with the actual variation in the wings there as we go through it. And I think some of the actual, it might be a little bit typical here, but some of the hexagonal pieces coming together really helped as well. And I think that input came in from Nemo, Captain Nemo, and really made a big difference in terms of getting the shapes down. It kind of complemented the rest of the form as well. It kept it pretty geometric and very structural looking. So that was extremely helpful. So that was the first sketch we did on that variation. And the second one we did was this. We back in and it took a little bit more. Now notice all of a sudden we got a little guttier with the wings again, a little bit more pull. Let's go back and see if we can get these guys together side by side here. Look at the difference. If I can get these up here in place, look at the difference in the wingspan here from where we were here. Look how thin it is here. How we started to beef it up and through here. And I think that's what we're after. Something that really has that kind of character to it. It's just, and it really begins to punch out. And then, again, moving the engine nacelles out. Notice here they're pretty tight. Oops, pardon me. Let me get that up on the screen here. This is pretty tight to the actual sidewalls of the storage areas here. But then notice by just pulling them outboard a little bit more and just getting a little bit more exhaust. It comes up on top and through the exhaust, and down below there's the secondary auxiliary engine is still established well below. But I think the overall concept of this started looking a little guttier. Notice I changed the sweep too. It's not as stiff, a little bit more angle in the wing system itself really began to help. So that was number one. This one we're discussing is the second phase we did, which is this guy right here. Pretty interesting set of circumstances. I think it opened it up a little bit. It just looked a lot stronger in terms of the overall girth. And then the third one we did was another variation, not quite the same format, but again, looking at maybe a different set of wheels. So it really changed the wing system on this thing now. It really helped a little bit, but it kind of moves it away from the initial variation of the theme itself, and that is, notice how this thing really opens up. Same process, but it really stiffens again. Look at the difference in the actual ramp angle between this guy, where we were down below. Look at this guy, I'm going to sneak that in, and then sneak this guy below it, and there it is. Look at the ramp angle here as opposed to here. This goes a little closer to the original concept sketch, so this is a bit of a departure to see what would take place, how it would happen to get those wing systems to work here as we go. Again, it was really a concern of mine all the way through this process and this go-around was to really take advantage of getting some more guts back in through here to really kind of pull this piece together. This is a little more melodic. I think the storage systems might be a bit too designy for this process, but it kind of slims it up. This cartridge fits into the docking system and the functional area here, and then the rest of this is all carryover engines and cockpit and so forth. So that's all pretty standard set of circumstances. So those are the three lineups that we worked with there on getting that all set. And then went back in again and said, okay, now if we're there, let's go back to this one third. I think based on the consensus on the Mystery Stream program, everybody kind of felt that this one was really interesting in terms of maybe the overall final look. Again, the wings looked a little guttier. This storage area looked a little healthier, and it just looked like it had some more prominence to it. So based on that, I went ahead and took another stab at this thing from a proportional point of view and just changed again just a few things in the wing surface. Again, notice what's going to happen here. Prior to going into that, by the way, let me just show a little thumbnail sketch I did just very briefly on this guy. I put together another process here, trying to get this whole wing system to kind of beef itself up a little bit, give it some more substance. But however, look what happened there. I think this kind of crowds it. This has to open up a lot more to kind of get more breathing room with that engine nacelle and that the storage boxes in between the two systems there. So I think that's part of the whole process. Again, that resolved. I mean, it wasn't too bad, but I think the dihedrals are going to have to go. I just don't think they're going to work in this cargo system at all. And the dropship variation, it just doesn't need it. I don't think it's not really a combat setup. It's more of a delivery system. And I think the less we make out of that, and the more we make out of the wing system, and the overall proportions, the stronger it's going to get. So that little thumbnail study was done as a generation start on getting this guy to function here. And I went back in and notice I just started changing the exhaust system, having more of a stealth-like flat panel exhaust release, and again opened up the wing a little bit. It just still looks a bit weak in here. I think there's something about this angle didn't quite fit right, whereas I think the other one we were showing you earlier with this one that was preferred, which was this guy. Look how much more angle, how much more guts there is. Pardon me as I move this up a little bit. How much more guts there is in this area right in through here. It really helps a lot to kind of stiffen that guy up. So that's where we are with that one. And so from that point of view, it says, okay, let's just kind of finish this out so we can get the stretch of this thing. So from that variation of theme, went into this. Now we've got a little more guts to it. Notice it's starting to really take on some real prominence here. I think it's really funny how when I put it all together, it just still looks a little thin right in through here. I mean, it's there, but it still looks thin. Maybe it's the overall mass of the tail section on this thing. You're getting some sort of a defense system in the rear section and so forth. Getting that piece to work has really been a real dilemma in terms of putting it all together. So the judgment day today is to get this thing resolved in terms of, I think we've got a good carrier system here, and how to resolve the tail section is still a bit of an enigma. But again, I think the wing system looks pretty good. I mean, it's starting to come out, and we bent it back a little bit with a little more break to it. And again, went to a vertical exhaust system, which has really helped. The vertical exhaust gave us more latitude between the storage modules to kind of beat them up a little bit, get a little healthier with it, and much bolder appearance to it. So there we are there. That was that portion of it. So I went from that phase into this phase, went right back in again, added it again. Now notice the difference in the girth here. Now this, I think, starts to work. it all of a sudden has a real almost insect-like to it in terms of scale, proportion, and the way the whole. And I'm not quite happy with the gunning system, the artillery system back here yet. But I think looking at what we have here now, notice I really took advantage of getting those wings to be really gutty, like the original concept sketch was for the hangar version and the attack variation of this machine. So I think a lot of that really helped to kind of get that girth back in. This really starts to look like it's got some real health to it, as opposed to where we were. Let's go back and see if we can find that one sketch here that we started off with in terms of being extremely elusive with this guy. Yeah, I think this, look at the difference here between this one, this is where we are now, and this is where we started. I mean, look at the difference in the weights. I think we can kind of show those together here. You see the difference in the weights there? Huge difference. That, to me, that makes a real statement. I think now, I think we're making some headway with this guy in terms of where we want to take it. And overall, much healthier. I mean, I feel much more at ease after working through a number of variations on theme to get this thing to kind of open up a little bit and really do some really gutsy work with it. But I think the real process here I want to take a second to look at is, we'll go back and revisit this overview in a moment. Man, I think the view is the right view. I still think that's the right view of the overhead, for example, so we can see what that's going to look like. But I'd like to go back to this just for a moment, just for what it's worth. Let's see if I can come up with this guy just for a second. Let's bring this guy back into flight here. And I want to go back to just some very basic elevations so that we can see what's beginning to happen. I'm going to keep this fresh, and we'll see if we can translate that a little bit here in this elevation. Let's see if we can kind of get this guy to cheat a little bit here. Since we already got it done and the proportions look pretty solid, let's stay with this guy for just a second here. We'll go through a couple of variations on theme here. Let's go back and look at this beauty. So we have this canopy. Let's move these engine nacelles back just a bit. Let's get that brow to that cap to work, and then we're going to bring this right straight back into there. A little less romantic, much more functional looking. So it's this to this. Let's get this canopy to work here. There it is. And that nose cannon off of this beauty. Let's come down the ground line here where the base is. I think it's really important to really pay attention to the fact that the scale we have here is really critical in putting the whole process together. So I want to really take a moment here and just go back and revisit this elevation to make sure we've got the right substance in place here. So let's kind of go back and get this in place. Let's get that kick out here. Let's get those engines in place now. Let's get this in here. Let's take this back just a bit further. Kick it in. Now let's bring it back. All of a sudden, I think we're getting a lot more guts. Let's change this ramp just a bit too. Let's bring this back a bit more too. Let's open that up. Now all of a sudden, yeah. I think it's taking some of the clumsiness out of it, and again, a little more streamlined. At the same, not streamlined in the sense that it's cosmetic, but really doing a nice job of getting this. Let's get this brow up on top here now. Let's bring this cockpit, let's bring this storage area in here. There's the flat part here. Let's take this back. Now it's going to be much more hexagonal. First of all, let's get this engine system in here, the lower piece. Ammunition system at the end of the wing cap. There we are. Now, I'm just going to concentrate on what this tail section is going to look like here. See where that offset is? Well, let's stop there just for a moment. This is the difference in the stance here. A big difference, I think. Now, let's concentrate on the back of this guy. I'm going to take this right back and kick it up just a bit. So we can get this thing resolved here. That's this lower engine. There's my exhaust. Let's do this too. All right, so some just basic graphics. Just kind of blocking it in a bit here. Just kind of roll. Let's program this thing back here. Let's get this exhaust. You'll see just a little bit of that vertical exhaust piece coming back into it. So that'll look like that. Let's kind of tone that in so that's where we know we are. Let's come back and pick this thing up here. Eight storage boxes. Let's bring this in. Here's my split line. All right, let's look at that, see what that looks like. What do you think, gang? There's a pretty quick little elevation study of what that new process might look like here. I'm trying to make that compatible with, this is a bit of a design change in the rear section, so don't mislead you here. This is a little bit of a design change underneath here. We've got the very massive wing system here. That's starting to look like so, bends back. This is now in flight, this is at rest. Big difference in terms of trying to get this whole thing to come back. And the real issue is going to be back into here now. I think I'm really pleased with the overall content and the impact of the actual wing surface itself. It looks like it's got some guts to it now. Big help in terms of putting that all together. So I think the real judgment day here is to get these little finesse pieces put together and all of a sudden begin to really kind of bring these two pieces together from the overhead rear three-quarter view. I think this has got the right substance. I'm really pleased with that much right there. So any suggestions that you might have in terms of kind of coming back in and reconfiguring this whole tail section here, I don't know if it's really quite right yet. I'll have to look at it here from maybe we just keep extending this and blunt that off back there. I'm not sure how to handle that at this stage of the game. It'll be a bit of a different study, I'm sure, but let's go back and let's see what's one more here. Let's see if we can kind of do a couple more of these guys. Let's kind of bring this downhill since it's a lot easier to work with here. So let's kind of bring this down just a touch. Let's see what happens. It's got to come up here. Since it's already, the proportions are pretty well set, I think that might be a good way to work with this guy. Let me get rid of this guy just for a moment here, and we'll pin this up. And maybe just attack that wing surface here. Let's see what that's starting to look like here. Just gotta get that downhill. Pardon me for just setting this up a bit. There we are. Let's look at a few of these things here. Let's kind of line this up. A little more real estate between the two elevations here. Let's go above and below. There we are. That looks pretty healthy. Let's see what happens here. Let's go back and get that gesture down. Maybe just a little quick line study here. This. Into this. Keep bringing this back. Spike that in. With that wing surface here. There's the hood. And there's the kickback in the wing itself. It struck the engine system. Very large upper nacelle to work with. Let's kind of bring this back into play here. Let's lift this just a bit. Let's drop that just a touch to see what happens there. Just looking at form here. Yeah, that's not bad. Basic gesture. Let's just kind of look at this thing, analyze it. And the real issue back here, I think, is this. Maybe we open that up. And maybe we blunt this off and do this. Really difficult, I think, task to get that thing to look like it really belongs in terms of overall form and shape here. Really interesting how it all, there's just something about keeping this form back here simple. I don't know just how to resolve this guy yet. It's really been a real dilemma. So if I come back into this and maybe add this, maybe that's it. Maybe that simple little tail section back there that has a munition system attached to it. That might be a little healthier here. I don't know. And this thing pivots, so I'll have to set it up like so. Down to ground. That secondary engine down below here. I don't know. What do you think there, gang? If you get a chance to look at this beauty, just get your interesting feedback on this thing. Really good, good problem to solve. There we are. Is that part of it? Little engine piece here. Down the ground line here. And there are two variations on that same approach. Really difficult to kind of discern here. Let's kind of get these out of the way here. So this is where we started. Let's go to this guy first here. We started there. That's where we ended up. And then we all of a sudden we changed a little bit of the contour here, got rid of the dihedrals. We went to phase 2. It's kind of interesting. We just kind of broke it down in almost like a segmented piece back here. And then the third one, getting into the little bit more, I think this a little bit simplified resolve in the tail section, I think is a little bit healthier here. So I think that's interesting too. And I think just for what it's worth, we have to add this. Makes a big difference when you start to put human scale to it as well. That's what we've got here. That's a large machine. I mean, that's really interesting how we put that piece together here. And that really tells a story about what we're going to do here. Let's get this guy again. A little bit of skill involved in it. So there we are. I think those are two. There's the initial piece here. There's the initial family of sketches here that set it off in elevation. And going back to, this is the original. Go back to separate them out. There's the original piece we looked at in terms of putting together that Manticore dropship piece with the dihedrals in place. So we went from that variation to this variation, I think, and I think it really might be helpful here to bring these two together. So there's an elevation revisit to get that kind of organized and put aside here, trying to settle a little bit. And then there's the actual overview of the actual vehicle itself. So it's kind of, we can sneak this up just a bit more. There we are, get this in there. I think I'm really resolving this. I think this portion here, this whole area here, to me, looks like it's got some substance to it. All of a sudden, it's going to get some rhythm, and it looks like it belongs. It's a lot guttier looking. It's got much more mass in the wings. I think the scale looks much better. Still want to revolve maybe in the next few days or so. Take a good look at maybe resolving this tail section area here. Not quite happy with what that's doing. This isn't a bad solution here. It's coming from that hexagonal cargo box system into some sort of a neat resolve back here to make it much more functional and less clumsy. Like, I don't want to overbuild it, nor do I want to get into a situation where all of a sudden you just get so much, it's too cosmetic. So make it appear to be very, very cosmetic and functional, but at the same time fall in line with the overall theme that we're trying to develop with this Manticore piece here. So there we are. Let's do this. Let's kind of move this up just a bit here. And there's the one I think we're going to work with here as far as flavor is concerned. And then this guy is the overall 3/4 rear view of what we're after. So I do think that we've got some good resolve here. I think the biggest issue we really got to take care of in this case was to get this again, so to be redundant, but it's so critical. Some of the earlier sketches, let's go back and find that one again, where we're so gossamer, kind of light in weight, not really kind of following the format that we've established here. I think we've come a long way from, yeah, this is the one I was looking at here. This one really has made, that's the one that was kind of a weak cousin here. And this one, no, that was the one that was, this one not favored. This one was favored yesterday. Let's go back and through a little genealogy here. So this is the one we did, this is where we started. Again, look how very thin that appears to be in terms of where we need to be. Yeah, it did the job, but it just looked, again, very weakened through here. Then we went from that series into beefing up the wing structure itself, which I think really helped. And I'm not sure, maybe we go back to this. The more I look at that, that's a simple resolve, and maybe it gets the job done for us. I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see what the outcome is on this at best. But again, from those two studies and going back and resolving it into this, I think it really began to help. Look at the mass, and I really think that's starting to tell the story. And another big change too was really helpful is to go from the horizontal traditional exhaust port system here, which is in this approach, into much more the vertical, almost stealth type, stack type is really interesting. That made a big difference. And again, the reason for doing that was to really kind of relieve some space and to get the storage systems to work without being interfering with the exhaust pattern itself and the actual ship as it begins to go into flight mode. So that's it. I think we're in pretty good shape here today, guys. Interesting process. I think, as I said in the beginning of the stream, this is much more of a judgmental day for me in terms of kind of stepping back a bit and looking at some inventory about where we are and how it all is beginning to come together, hopefully, and to get a good resolve in this whole dropship process. Is a very different, interesting set of circumstances. Interesting in the sense that it's a challenging reward to finally get this wing system put together, and then we'll work with this tail section here to get the munition system squared away. But I think overall, very happy with the progress we've made here in this short period of time over the last few days since yesterday's stream. I think getting all these pieces to fall into place really begin to help us here enormously. So good stuff here, gang. So hope all is well with you. And again, I want to thank you for taking the time to join me today in the stream. As I said, it's a bit of a short run because I wanted to really kind of pull back a little bit and take some inventory on where we are and begin to address what we need to do in the next few days to get this. I might pick it up tomorrow. I might give it a bit of a break and analyze it and change subject matter for tomorrow's stream at 2:30. I hope you'll join me at that time. And again, thank you so much for the time today, gang, and I wish you all the very best. And please, if you have a moment, please visit my website at drcontrast.com, all lowercase letters, drcontrast.com. Some very interesting and some good basic drawing programs to work with, 9 lessons. And also, if you have any issues or concerns you want me to work on and things you'd like to see me develop as we go through the process here on my stream on Twitch, please feel free to drop me a note at jim@drcontrast.com. And we can take it from there and begin to put some pieces together for you to help you out, whether it's a lesson plan or a system or a surface or you have to develop or something you're dealing with. If I can help you, I'd be more than happy to do the best I can to do so. So there we are. There's the final. I think went right back to those 2 elevations to really kind of help tell our story here. Something about I still think simplifying this tail section is going to do it. But other than that, I think we've got a pretty good resolve of what this monster is going to look like when it's all said and done. So we'll go through a series of variation sketches, pick the best of the best, and get it all resolved for us here. So once again, thank you so much for the time. There's a final overhead 3/4 rear study that we just kind of wrapped up on here. Again, much guttier. I think progress made from yesterday to today has been much healthier. I feel much better where we are now, and begin to resolve it now and finesse it and to get a real good pattern set for the final run. So again, thank you so much for the time. Hope you have a great day. And I always close my stream off with this very important message because I think it's so true. And it has to be stated. And again, never forget to dare to be great because you are. Thanks very much, gang. Take care and have a great day. See you tomorrow at 2:30 when we'll either go back to this Manticore piece or else maybe change subject matter. So stay tuned. All the very best and thanks again.